Good morning, everybody, and welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here in studio, along with Sir Rick, who once again is on assignment out there doing the hard work, making things happen. How's it going this morning, Sir Rick?
You know what? Drive Safe just trying to make things happen. Got a little working. Still working at the other office here. I still got my safety gear ready to go. I've got to go out and preach safety. I got to go out to the school zones. I got to go out to all those places you're probably not allowed to go to. I've got to make sure I'm there, ready to warn the world about Drive Safe Dave, dips, and safety.
No, you don't warn the world. You pump up the world about it. You give all that information about Drive Safe Dave. So, and by the way, school zones, try not to be in school zones talking. That's a no talking. You move them through slowly, get them going, but don't stand out there in the road talking. That's probably not ideal.
I find myself now, though, Drive Safe Dave, taking pictures and spending time with the crossing guards. I don't need a sign. I just
bunch of selfies.
This way, guys. Follow him. I'm just like this. Follow him around. So I'm all good.
All right, couple things real quick for you.
Safety.
Hey, couple things we got real quick. Just somebody, how about them Cowboys, Sir Rick? I know I haven't had a chance to ask you yet, but we'll take it. We'll take the victory. They look pretty good. That defense looks pretty solid.
Defense is very good. We need a quarterback, though. I know everybody's hopping on the bandwagon. He's 4-0. He's not a starter. We need a quarterback. I know he's winning, and let me tell you, great backup, doing a great job on that. But you've got to have a quarterback. I'm going to tell you, last night, I don't know if you watched the Chiefs game or not, but my God, they looked like they looked when they won the Super Bowl. Mahomes was unbelievable. There was nobody going to beat that team yesterday.
Well, couldn't that have a little bit to do with who they're playing? They looked.
They're playing Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay got all their receivers back. I don't know, Dave. You probably didn't even watch the game, so you're probably not one to even talk about it.
I didn't watch the whole. Okay, yeah, I did go to bed early. I did watch a little bit of the highlights. So. I didn't watch the whole game. I went to bed a little bit earlier. I think I went to bed at 7:45.
I don't know about you, but are you saying that Tom Brady's not the greatest quarterback to ever play the game?
Did I say that, Sir Rick? Did I say that? I didn't say that.
Look, he only played against Tom Brady, the same quarterback that beat him 2 years ago.
Punished him.
But I will say that, hey, Drive, I know you're coming off the weekend as well. And before we get into news, talk to us about that weather and that big hunt you had out there in West Texas.
Well, I'll tell you, it was not a great hunt. However, the weather was really nice, really pretty. It was still a little bit warm. It was in the 90s. It was 90, 91, but they weren't flying. I didn't even, all around us, I only heard like one or two shots from the whole time we were out there. But 2.5 hours sitting in the desert, sitting in the dirt, waiting for doves to fly over. I got done. I was done about 2.5 hours. There was a line of them, about 25, about half a mile off on a telephone wire, watching me sweat in the dirt and didn't move.
Are you sure that wasn't just a mirage of birds? They really weren't there. It was like, when you see water out there in that heat, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, no, I was out there, and let me tell you that they were not going to fly by me. I'll tell you, it was very non-moving day. They just weren't moving.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of warm air, but it is. The weather's nice here in Texas. It's always good to enjoy this weather. Drive Safe Dave. This is the kind of the weather we wait for, and we finally got it, that brutal summer. But anyway, we can move on from there. Drive Safe Dave. Hey, we got a good show today. Before we talk about that, I will hop into some of the freight. And tomorrow's Tuesday, so we get into it a little bit more on Tuesdays. But volume is dropping a little by little by little. Not a good sign for our industry. We dipped down to that 11,800 mark on the freight volume. Remember, Sir Rick said it a month ago that we can't drop under 12,000. So a big day. This is a big week in my view. Do we continue that southward, where the volume drops, or does it go up at all, or maintain 11.8? Dave, there's just nothing being rejected right now. Not a lot of, freight's still higher than it was a couple years ago, but let's not forget there's also a few more carriers out there running right now. I think that we're all a little bit more efficient in what we do. The difference, I think, too, Dave, one thing to also remember this year compared to last year. Remember last year, volume was extremely high, but I think that we forget about last year was how many loads, how many shipments were being shipped out at a half capacity, maybe 3/4 at tops, as there was just no inventory. Today, in today's market, I can tell you this, that trailer's not going out unless it's full.
Yeah, the Cuban amount right now, they're loading them up. We're not shipping air right now like we were last year at this time, because all of the inventories are packed. They're stacked and they're full. So they've got to be, they'll absolutely be more efficient. I just think the times are going to call for more efficiency in any of the shipping, whatever we do. I just think you're just going to have to be good at it as we move into this fourth quarter.
Now, I will say, though, too, is that, some good news for those independent contractors out there. We continue to see a decrease in fuel. Dave, I didn't know, and we haven't seen it yet. I mean, maybe it happens today. I haven't really looked at the oil prices today, but, that little attack, explosion, self-explosion, whatever you want to call it, with Russia and the pipeline, is that going to have any effect on the diesel prices?
I don't know. I did look at it this weekend. It did fall below 80. It was at 78 or 77 as of Saturday. I saw West Texas crude, so that hadn't had any negative impact towards the price per barrel that I had seen as of this weekend. I hadn't checked it this morning, but on Saturday it was at $78 a barrel.
Yeah, that's one thing, too. For those of you that have never seen this, let me tell you, this is BCB Live. We're the safest station in the nation. We're on every day, Monday through Friday at noon. And one thing you can count on from us is timely news and timely research. We're going back to Saturday. I know it's Monday, but last time we researched any of the news was Saturday. So if something happened yesterday other than football, we are clueless. We don't have a clue.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm out. I'm still talking about the game yesterday at the water cooler this morning. So, it is going on. I'm not sure exactly yet, though, Sir Rick. I'll have it for you in just a second, but it looks like.
Are we going to watch you and this is what you do all day? What are you doing now, Dave? That shouldn't have been done yesterday.
77-17 as of right now.
Got it. All right. Hey, but Dave, today's show, we do have the great Dave Heller coming on the show.
We do.
Always exciting, out of Virginia, right across the street, Dave, from Washington, D.C. He let you know that today in the pre-interview, in case you weren't aware of that. But he is our Washington connection. We're going to talk a little truck parking. We're going to talk about that storm a little bit, Dave, as well as some other things. But before we do that, can we go to a break and come right back?
Yep.
You're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. BCB Live covers freight. Here we are now at 21% of record freight being rejected. News down in Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about this. We had another $1.5 million seizure. If ever there's a time to do a pre or post trip, it's if you're doing something wrong. Weather, traffic.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to some traffic and weather with Buckle Up Bob. You can kind of see where the visibility can be compromised a little bit. Again, right where that rain is.
And most importantly, safety.
One of the things that we must do is make sure that safety is the number one thing that we focus on.
Going into an intersection, yellow is not the way. That's to clear an intersection, not to enter an intersection.
Tune in weekdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch BCB Live through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and follow BCB Live.
All right, we are back with Sir Rick in the pretty hat, and we're here. We are joined today with the unbelievably highly recognized David Heller, Senior Vice President of Governmental Affairs out at Truckload Carriers Association. How you doing, David?
I'm doing well. I just wish I was on the NFL part of the conversation, talking about Cooper Rush and his 4-0 record as a starter for the Cowboys.
Not bad. We'll take that all day as a backup, right? You can't get worse than that.
Especially against the Commanders. Go Cowboys.
Yeah,
I still
we'll
can't
apply
get used
that.
to that name. You know what? That's a tough name for me to get used to, the Commanders. But
I can't get used to it either, so I'm lucky I got it right this time.
All right,
hey,
so
yeah. Let me go. Hey, so David, we have big, topics that we continue to talk to folks on this station about. We hear it throughout the industry, especially when you talk to the truck drivers, is parking. I mean, give me some good news. I mean, is it there? Is it open? Do we have parking all over the place?
If that were the case, right, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. You wish it were, but I can say there's good news to report or positive strides that are happening in this realm, if you will. First and foremost, we were able to get language in appropriations basically highlighting the problem in the House Appropriations Bill, which was step number one, too. Step number two is getting those dollars flowing, and those dollars are in the process of flowing. You're starting to see a lot of news out there of these grants that are getting issued to improve the truck parking initiatives that are going on out there. So this is a bipartisan issue, without a doubt. It's something that everybody can seemingly get behind. It's one of those conversations that are easy to have on the Hill because you walk out of it feeling good, and everybody knows this is a problem that needs to be fixed. Now, how do you need to fix it? You need dollars, and that's the long and short of it. And dollars created helps form these new parking spots or new lots, if you will, in the places that we actually need them along the major freight corridors across the country. So that's really what's going on, is the quest for actually finding dollars. There's a bill out there that was introduced. It's about 755 or 775 million over 4 years that is being talked about. And it's a good bill put forward by Congressman Bost, who is a truck driver and owns a trucking company. And he put this bill out there because he recognizes the need for it. And I think everybody can get behind the fact that we need safe and secure truck parking for our nation's driving army.
Yeah, and David, as we're talking about it, it's I understand it's a lot easier said than done out there to get money, but I'll tell you what, just from talking to truck drivers and having been one, it's really the metropolitan areas that you go in and that you feed to find these much needed areas. Out there on the open road, you typically can find it, but we deliver and we pick up in these heavy metropolitan areas. I think that's the huge challenge, right? To get these dollars to buy those much needed spaces.
Well, yeah, and the reality is you look at the East Coast and West Coast, you look at I-95 and I-5 or 87, and then you look at Chicago. Those are the big hitters in terms of truck parking. If there's a problem, you're going to find it in those places. So that's really what we're talking about. So getting dollars to find land, buy land, grow land, or make land usable for truck parking becomes the real issue. And a lot of states right now have discretionary funds that were given to them through the infrastructure program. However, the big difference is those discretionary dollars didn't go as far as they did last year because we've got inflation. Certainly the cost of construction has gone up tremendously. So you're looking at roads, bridges, truck parking, and they all fall under that same umbrella or that same formula. So those dollars have to be spread across the three. So it becomes a question of exactly how much is truck parking going to get, especially when we need roads and bridges as well.
Hey, so David, on that truck parking, let's just pretend that tomorrow all the cash is available. There's still a lot of work to do yet, right? We still have to go out and do the studies and find the land. Have the studies even been done yet, or does that happen after the cash is available?
Well, and that's a great question. And I think half of it is still, there is some studies being done, or truck parking or lack thereof is not a new problem. This is one that's been around for a long time. And certainly in some cases, there have been studies done that have availability for paving a lot, if you will, or making services available for drivers on the road. So it's a process, if you will. Some are well ahead of the game, some are not so much. So it just becomes a question of where is this located and what part of the country is it located, how far along in the process have they gotten to, and what's next.
Yeah, there's been genuine conversations up on the Hill. It seems like their conversations are being had. I just wish you would make the floor or get out of committee or at least get in there so that we can get something done, because this is almost frustrating to a degree of where everybody knows there's a problem. Everybody's talked about the problem. We've talked about it. Many people have brought it up in both in the houses and in subcommittee, but it's never really making its way to the floor in order to get voted on. I mean, what are we going to do and how are we going to get it done?
And that's a great question, because nothing in government ever really moves quickly per se. It all goes at a snail's pace at best. And then, today's Congress, usually things like this get attached to something much larger. And here we are, we're, pretty much the congressional session is over with. Now it's midterm elections. So you're almost waiting till year end or lame duck session before anything gets taken up, if it gets taken up at all, which then puts us into the following year where this conversation has to happen all over again. So it's one of those interesting things. You're right. It does not move quickly whatsoever. And you hope times like this, with the nature as emergent as the need for safe and secure truck parking, would move a lot quicker. And it's just not moving at the speed in which you, myself, or anybody else involved in the trucking industry wants it to move at.
Yeah. Switch it gear just a little bit, and it probably won't take long. AB5, any movement on it? I mean, we saw Universal Logistics come in and unionize a group of their independent contractors. I haven't seen much other movement other than that. Is there any new anything happening? Any steps to say it's going to happen or it's not going to happen, or is it still just kind of hanging out there waiting for somebody to make a decision on, I guess?
Well, the injunction's been lifted, so it's not a question of when or how or if it'll happen. It is happening, but it's not a quick pace, because enforcement actions aren't one that happen at the roadside. It's enforcement actions that will happen in terms of investigations, probably litigation. So it's going to take some time till we see how all this shakes out. Certainly the carriers are planning and have their plans in place on how they adjust for AB5 and what comes next. And we're obviously paying attention to the states that could, for lack of a better term, fall in regard to California. So you're looking at Washington, Oregon, and then on the East Coast, Massachusetts, New Jersey, some of these East Coast states. So traditionally, once one state falls, others start getting in line. So we're trying to see how this shakes out. And 70,000 independent contractors in the state of California, it's not a small number. So it's going to shake out one way or another. But carriers are putting in different practices all across the board, practices that are best for their own fleet, whether it's making these independent contractors their own employees. But doing that basically eliminates the need that they started an independent contractor business in the first place. So, there's a lot of different practices that are going on in the industry today when it comes to AB5. People are preparing all across the board and how this could shake out and if there is enforcement action against them. So it's one of those things at this point now, it's a wait and see.
Yeah, so I guess, that becomes the question now, right? Is that enforcement just nothing? I haven't heard, again, so on that enforcement area, is there any rumors? Are you hearing anything from carriers, from legislation on, hey, it's going to happen January, February? I know they can go back, but when are they really going to start that enforcement? Is it really clearly no idea right now?
I haven't heard a single peep on that. So at this point in time, your guess is as good, if not better than mine. So it's one of those, we're really kind of wait and see. And we don't know what the next step is. We don't know how this is going to shake out. We haven't heard any stories or, hey, here's an investigation that's going on. None of these things have actually happened. And it's been abnormally quiet under something that is so impactful.
So, and just so that I'm clear, David, and I understand, this also opens up the possibility for this to be retroactive, right? They can go back over time, even if they start to enforce it in, let's just say, March. They can turn around and go back over time and go get like money in arrears. Am I not mistaken on that?
Well, yeah, I would imagine. And again, I'd have to put my legal hat on, which doesn't really exist. But I would imagine they can go back to the point where the injunction has been lifted. So they can't go back until it was actually when it was put in place. But they have to go back probably to when the injunction was lifted, which happened a few weeks ago.
All right.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I think this is, David, the exact opposite of like what Cher, if I could turn back time, they will turn back time. I can assure you on that.
They're not going to leave money on the table if that money is to be had.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey, let's move it over to the other coast now. We had just a major storm, hurricane that hit Florida, moved up the coast up to the Carolinas as well, and Georgia. Dave, I want to first talk about number one, wow, just crazy destruction, and our hearts, prayers go out to. But I also want to make sure we take time to recognize and understand that everybody sees who is the ones bringing in this, the relief goods, all the generators, the food, the water. This trucking industry once again, really shows who we are when this country needs us at the most.
Oh, rest assured, the state of Florida can relax, because all the things they need to rescue and rebuild, it's going to be on a truck. There's no doubt about it. It's coming in by truck, and that trucking army is rolling as we speak with goods that state needs to rebuild and get itself back on its feet. We'll play an integral part in that, no doubt about it.
So, and I'm just curious, and just so everybody's aware, when FEMA reacts and they start to move goods and services, it's all on trucks. There's not federal truck drivers out there running federal trucks, moving federal goods. It's actually our trucking. It's our truck drivers in the United States actually moving those goods and services over their trucks to get in there in cooperation with FEMA, correct?
Oh, it'll be on government contracted freight carriers, if you will. It's not the federal government doesn't have this massive fleet of trucks and trailers and whatnot. No, it's on truckload carriers and LTL carriers that are all driving that stuff right down to Florida as we speak. Last time I heard, there's a massive convoy of stuff that is heading down to that west coast of Florida to make sure the population there are taken care of and they have everything they need.
Yes, sir. And along that same side is that, again, to the drivers out there, we want to make sure that you hear it from us here at BCB Live, from all the trucking, the Truckload Carriers Association, from David and that group is, man, we are so thankful because we couldn't do it. This country couldn't do it without you. And you know what? It's also our time to recognize that even during this time right here, when times get chaotic, is that we really got to stop back, slow down for a minute, and make sure we're focusing on safety. David, I know that you know this, but when this world gets crazy like this, when chaos happens, oftentimes we start to, we take it personal. Maybe because hours of service have been lifted, that we feel like we can drive further than we should, even going into Florida to helping people. First and foremost, I think all of us on this show here want to remind you that safety does come first. I don't care how many hours you have. If you're worn out, if you're just tired, if something's going on, you've got to get off that road, even in Florida, where you have an open logbook right now as they're not checking out everything right now. So just a reminder to each and every one of you to always make sure that, number one, hey, safety does come first.
Hey.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And if you look at it this way, right, if the load doesn't get there because there's an accident that happens, then it's not doing any good in the first place. And in the industry, we always recognize the professional truck drivers as the captain of the ship. They're the ones that are making the decisions first and foremost on how to proceed. So drivers, regardless of how you're hauling, make sure you're well rested and able to operate that vehicle, because the load is desperately needed of what you're hauling. Whether it's generators, first aid, you name it, it's clothing, building supplies, things of that nature. Things to rebuild or continue the rescue efforts. There's a reason you're bringing that load to where it's going in the state of Florida, and whether you have a open logbook or not, you're the captain of that ship, and that load needs to be there, and that's first and foremost. So operating safely is priority number one.
Hey, David, when you're talking about Florida and you saw the disaster that comes on, we talk about the drivers going in there. How is TCA directly working with carriers in the regions and stuff like that to try to get all this stuff back on track? I mean, how are y'all working with your carrier partners out there and finding ways and offering up solutions to make it better what's happening out there?
And in times of past, and the same, we highlight what our carrier members are doing to help with the recovery effort and telling that story and demonstrating the need of the trucking industry in this entire effort, because they're the most flexible form of transportation of goods that this country has ever seen. It's not an airport, it's not a train station, it's a truck, and all this stuff goes on a truck. So we're telling that story and making sure we're highlighting the stories. If we can hear situations or hear information about a driver who may need a request for the exemption of hours of service, certainly we'll exacerbate that issue or things of that nature. But at this point in time, all the goods are already rolling through the FEMA contracts that they have with those carriers, and it's a good story to tell.
Well, I'll tell you, we enjoy the opportunity to highlight the drivers. We enjoy the opportunity to highlight how important the industry is. How well is it being received up on the Hill, and how well is that story being received? Because I think it is important, and I think it is one that you tell, that you go out there and tell. How are they reacting to these kinds of stories that you're acting? Because I want to know what they're saying, because I'm going to call them if they don't say they give me the right answer. I'm calling my congressman, I'm calling my representative today if they're not giving you the right answers.
You know, I'll say this, and I've been doing this for some time now. I don't want to date myself, but I've been doing this for some time, and I think the professional truck driver is being viewed as an integral part of this nation's economy. They say they're the backbone of the economy. I say it's also their heartbeat too. So it's a little bit of everything, and that feeling is all across the board in Washington D.C. They recognize the need for the professional truck driver. They recognize the desire to have them and continue to haul freight. But again, as you hit the nail on the head, we want to do so in the safest manner possible. So certainly there are obviously safety rules and regulations that are in place to help emphasize that safety performance. But at the same point, our friends on Capitol Hill will always get the backs of the professional truck driver.
What's
hey,
new
Dave,
going? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Hey, David, I know that we have a new leader there of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Hey, talk to me. I'm just curious. So it's Robin Hutchison. Mm-hmm. Do you have much or any communication with her yourself, or is that more of is that come in more in groups or in from the associations?
I've spoken to Robin. We've had a meeting about 2 weeks ago in conjunction with our call in Washington as well, and we at TCA couldn't be more happier and are thrilled to be working with her on the safety initiatives that this industry is going to be working on in the next couple of months. Certainly, we recognize the fact and respect that she's come into a position, and she certainly has an uphill battle getting that safety record for an industry in line, so to speak. And we know she's up for the task, and we're willing to help her and partner on just about anything she wants us to partner on.
Don't forget at some point throw in a good word on BCB Live to Miss Hudson as well, right?
This is the safest station in the nation, so she should know about it, right?
That's where you start from. You start at the safest station in the nation.
That's step one.
David, what's new on the Hill? I mean, we've talked about some of the topics that we've discussed. I know we're going into midterm elections, but you've got your ear to the ground. That's what you're there. That's what the association's there for. What are we working on as we move forward into next year? What are some of your key things that you're emphasizing to get done?
We do a lot of talk on truck parking. There's no doubt about that. We've already covered that. So that's probably conversation number one. Conversation number two is always going to be equipment and what it looks like in the future as we go down this road. You hear a lot of talk on zero emission vehicles or electric powered vehicles and where the industry lies with that. And we're having a ton of those conversations recently as we start kicking the ball down that road. Now, again, you hit the nail on the head, right? It's midterm election season. This is the time of year where everybody's running for re-election or supporting those that actually are doing that. So this is a key time in the congressional calendar where they break or they're on recess at this point until midterms. And so there's a lot of the legislating that is not necessarily going to go on right now because they're focused on the election. But after the election, then you got lame duck, and then you've got a new Congress that will go into effect. So we're still having those background conversations. The zero emission vehicles or electric vehicle conversations are starting to take place pretty fast and furious that we've had a lot of conversations on. And again, a lot of things have shifted to the agency, which puts Robin Hutchison in the driver's seat on some of these things because they start focusing some of the issues on, you've seen some of the things that came out from the agency, the new ELD questions that were issued and talking about that. that speed limiters per se. They're still working on some of those rulemakings and getting down the line on that. So she's got a lot of work ahead of her, especially at a time when Congress is in recess and people are looking for the agency to lead on some of these things. And that's what's going on. It's in terms of Capitol Hill, midterm election is midterm season, fast and furious.
Well, I'll tell you what, we do appreciate it. David, as
Hold
always.
on a second. Hold on, I got to ask a question for you.
Okay.
Do we at the TCA, do we have a stance on the speed limiters?
We support speed limiters without a doubt, and our policy dictates that we support limiting speeds at 65 miles an hour or 70 if you have adaptive cruise control and other pieces of safety technology. So those conversations are there, and we continue going down that road. We filed comments to that effect, and at the same point, we also want to have conversations that this isn't your grandfather's speed limiter anymore. You're talking about different pieces of technology on the truck that can do far more than just prevent it from going over a certain speed. It can be flexible. It can build in horsepower or extra speed at a time when a driver needs it for a set period of time. So it's not that hit or miss or up and down question. There's a lot of things that can go on with it in terms of what that technology looks like today. I think you guys are all going to agree. Speed is that number one cause of accidents out there on the road today. So how do we stop that? How do we get that in line? Well, with some of the technology out there, it's amazing that you're looking at it can adapt to the street you're driving on, much less just be a strictly interstate problem. It can speed limit you at 25 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone, which that's new technology. That's things that this industry had never seen before, and certainly is hitting the streets, and carriers are having tremendous success. It's providing extra horsepower or extra speed to a truck on the interstate when they need it to pass another vehicle, which previously had never existed before. That conversation always died because the drivers always said, we don't have that extra speed when we need it. Well, some of these pieces of technology actually can afford that extra speed when they do need it. So what does this look like going forward? Well, the agency's got over 15,000 comments that they have to read and decipher. Doing that, they're trying to narrow the playing field on what this rule looks like. And your guess is probably better than mine as to what this rule will look like when they get to a supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking, which is the next step in that process.
Yeah, I think so many people, they hear the word speed limiters and technology. And again, if you're not in this industry, if you're not familiar with the technology, this industry has just gone crazy with technology. And to your point, there's so many different rules that these trucks can be fed to give them more power, more speed when they need that side. I also say it's as important it is at some point, we've got to find a way to give these trucks their lanes. Maybe they get that left lane to keep that frustration level. And Dave, we see it on videos more than we've ever seen it before. The frustration on the part of cars, not just with other trucks, but with their peers in the four-wheelers. Hard brakes, cutting off trucks, that distracted driving. We've got to make sure, and I guess I'll close with this because I know we're already out of time, but, is there anything going on up there to really educate those four-wheelers as well? I think we can spend as much time on educating our industry, but if we don't start with that elementary age at the trucking, at the schools, up to the junior high and the high schools, boy, we're forgetting about those folks that have no idea who they're out there riding with on these highways.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, the trucking industry is a massive, large industry. And as a carrier out there, I always encourage you to speak with your community, speak with your local school systems, get a truck in there, show how they interact with passenger vehicles. You talked about it 2 seconds ago when you talked about camera footage. I remember a time when cameras were a big no-no on trucks and everybody was scared of them. Now you can't get enough of them on the truck. So the trucking world has changed, and it's imperative we put these trucks in front of the people that are operating around them so that we can educate them and show them that, A, there's blind spots, B, if you're cutting in and out of trucks, probably not the best way to operate around them. You're dealing with the safest, most well-trained driver on the road today, and that's the professional truck driver. But at the same point, they have to act and counteract how these passenger vehicles live and deal with around them. So that becomes problematic. So I always say, get involved with your local school system, your local community, even your local college, and start talking about traveling and operating around a commercial motor vehicle while on the interstates or on a roadway. I know there's obviously national programs in there, and Our Roads, Our Safety program that FMCSA has put forward. But at the same point, nothing beats grassroots advocacy or grassroots education when you're getting in front of your own public school that's right around the corner from your office.
David,
yes, sir. To Robin Hutchison and to everybody, if only there was a station that could help get this information out.
All right, David. Hey, we appreciate your time. As always, we enjoy having you on. You will be on again. We do know that. We do appreciate it. Before you get out of here, you know what you got to say. You got to say your name, who you're with, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
David Heller with the Truckload Carriers Association, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
All right. Thank you, David.
Appreciate you as always.
You got it, guys. Appreciate you coming on.
All right, we will be back in just a second with Buckle Up Safety here in just a second. Sir Rick?
You can say it's Buckle Up Bob.
I did say Buckle Up. Did I not say Buckle Up Bob?
I said Buckle Up Safety.
Well, I like everybody to buckle up for safety, but we will also have Buckle Up Bob here in just a second to discuss a little bit about the safety topic.
60 seconds.
All right, and we are back here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave, along with Buckle Up Bob. I don't know, did I not say your name a minute ago?
No, you said Buckle Up, and then you pause and you go safety with BCB Live.
I don't know. I guess I just messed it up. I guess I can't read the cue cards unless I can't see all the cue cards all the time. So I got to go. So I have to just wing it. You know
That's
what I mean?
okay.
It's all right.
That's how you do most of it is wing it.
That's how I do most of it around here anyway. All right. What is the safety topic that we're discussing this week?
We're kind of talking about adverse weather. It's coming. Many may see it up in the Northeast in the next few days because I heard they got a low of 22. So, yeah. Winter is around the corner, so for a lot of the states. So we want to talk this week about driving in adverse weather. You know, everybody knows slow down. One of the things that I believe is we're going to talk about snow today, and it's probably, I think when drivers are probably their most safest for the most part, believe it or not. I know that sounds odd, but snow seems to get your attention just enough that you respect it and you actually slow down. We see in the rain, heavy rains, drivers don't slow down. Ice, they get off the road and stuff, and it's dangerous on ice. But in snow, they'll slow down and still drive, which is okay. Snow doesn't mean you can't drive out there and be safe about it. But it just seems that they pay attention more, and they should, because nearly 900 people are killed every year in snowy, slushy roads, and 76,000 people are injured every year. So, it requires a 15% speed reduction on light snow and 40% on heavy snow conditions. But, drivers, I'm just going to tell you, when you try to calculate that, I know most of you don't put a pen and paper to, okay, what is 15% of 70 miles an hour? But just know that whatever you think is a safe speed, especially in inclement weather, another 10 miles per hour less is probably where you need to be. That's just fact.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I think what we're saying here is that even though 900 are killed, and that's a large number, proportionally speaking, that's actually small if you think about the number of days that people encounter snow out there on the road. It's a much lower number than you would anticipate because of the slippery surface. But I do agree with you, Bob. I think when the environment changes so dramatically like that, They don't. They know it's slippery.
Yep.
And the environment, because they can't accelerate quick, so they get it, right? So I think that you're right. I think snow brings down its own mystique about driving out there because we go a little bit more careful. We drive a little bit slower, and yes, there are accidents, and yes, people make mistakes, and some will drive too fast.
Yes.
But overall, I think we as a group tend to do better when it comes to that environment. And we're going to have to drive in snow. I'm not saying that we're not. There's none of us here. You've lived in the Northeast. I mean, I've driven out there. You're going to drive in snow.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to happen.
Typically, it's not much different than if you go online, you get up in the Northeast, St. Louis and Kansas City. They see a lot of the same kind of weather. You really got to go extreme north, right? Or extreme south to get the heat, obviously in the summertime. But most of the time, they get, unless you have those freak storms, Yeah,
well, you get those.
Yeah, I remember the one year they closed 78 and 81, and it was closed for 3 weeks because they got about 2 inches of ice and then about 8-9 inches of snow, and it packed, and they couldn't get salt or anything down to the road surface.
Right.
Just literally couldn't get down there.
Yeah, and those are
rare
occurrences. But normally, snow, we are telling you to slow down, be careful, reduce speed, and ensure that you understand what you're doing when you're driving out there. Today we're talking about snow. Tomorrow we'll talk about a different adverse weather.
Yes, we will.
All right. Let's go and watch a couple of videos before we get out of here. Bob, what's going on here?
Well, somebody's tailgating, right? And there's just nowhere to go. Drivers out there. Remember, safer, and safest. The safest option, back off. Just back out of this. Get back in the right lane till it clears, and then maybe if you're going to look to pass, get back in the right. Slow down. If there's nobody behind you, you can stay where you're at and slow down. But just be patient and make the pass when it's clear to do so.
Yeah, I think the key here, and I think you're wanting to pass the slower car on the right. I think that's typically what's going to happen here. But whatever the case is, make sure that you give yourself enough space to be safe behind whatever vehicle you're behind.
Yeah, and here, always assume, the worst, prepare for the worst. Let's not just say assume. So let's just look at this guy. There's a reason this vehicle hasn't passed the slower vehicle on the right. And I don't know what that is, but there's a reason, and it's not going to be a safe one. Either they're impaired, right? They're tired, or they're just messing with people. Any way around it, it's not a good situation for you to be in because they should have passed this vehicle long ago.
Yeah. All right, next video. Now, this is what you will encounter a lot. And I'm just saying out there on the road, as a driver or a professional truck driver, you'll come up behind another truck that's going less than you. You just will. I mean, it's going to happen in some point in your 500-mile day. This is going to happen to you. How you react in these moments is what we're talking about. It's something you're going to see many, many times today. It doesn't matter if you're in a car or you're in a truck. But when you do, when you get up there, you've got to react accordingly. If you need to move over sooner, if you need to move over sooner, then you should do so, or you slow down enough to move around. But if you're going to get this close, you need to either pass or back off.
Yeah, and drivers out there, if your company has the new technology, listen to it, embrace it. Use it for what it's designed for, and that's to help you be the safest driver out there.
Next video. All right, here we are. Long shadows, and same deal.
Same deal.
Kind of understanding what's going on here. Kind of understanding that you're closing in on another big truck. Open it up. Either move into the lane to pass or create the space between you and the vehicle in front of you.
Yep.
All right, next video.
Absolutely right. Here, van's going to take your space, right? And this driver does a great job. Look, it immediately increases the space.
Yeah, good job here. Somebody's going to
This happens.
Yep.
We hear it all the time, right? Well, if I leave space, they're going to take it. Well, that's all right. Let them take it, and then be safe about it.
Reduce your speed for a couple of miles an hour, get away from them, and then go back up. You should be fine. Good reaction. Here's a scary one.
This is scary.
This is dangerous.
Ooh, this is life-threatening. This was so close, folks. You see the headlight coming the other direction, and just in this little truck, 70 feet area, that vehicle's no longer there. That's how close that was.
Yeah,
to being
this
catastrophic.
is scary. The driver's already reduced speed from a normal speed down to 50. and then had to move all the way over under the shoulder. This is scary, and I'm telling you right now, you don't want this.
No.
You don't want this. You don't want to be a part of this. Don't ever do this. Don't ever pass. And don't ever pass out there with an oncoming vehicle. And look, that is a no passing zone right there.
Yep. You know, and again, this might have been on 287. But these 2-lane highways, especially these rural roads, got to be extra careful, extra cautious.
All right. I'll tell you what. What we'll do is, man, I'll tell you what, that right there is a dangerous view. Don't want to ever see that. Don't want to ever be involved in that. Stay away from it. But I did like what the driver did. Move all the way over, slowed down, allowed that truck to pass, and even move over quickly. You never know where that's going to go or what that's going to do.
That's it. You want to get as much speed out of there as you can, drivers. That's the key to protecting life, right? Sometimes the accident is going to happen no matter what you do. But the more speed you can get out of that equation, the better off everybody is.
All right. Well, have a great and wonderful day. We will see y'all tomorrow, same time, 12 noon, right here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.